Welcome back to layout update number 6, guys. We're going to be doing a voiceover on most of this footage, so if you see my arms flapping around in different sections, that's because it's a voiceover. After replacing this tunnel wall with the one that used to be here, I've decided that I'm going to go with a 3D printed tunnel liner and be redoing the bridge piers with a 3D printed tunnel liner. I did like the way they originally churned out, but I just can't beat the appearance of the 3D printed stone wall.
Just like this illuminated Coca-Cola sign. I also have all these pop machine fronts and pop fridge fronts to do over in a similar fashion on the skirting on this side of the layout. Since I got this little guy, I'd like to maybe build a benchwork out to right about there and make it look like it's at a harbor front.
These rock molds take up a fair majority of the Western Canada side of the layout. There's over 20 35-pound bags of plaster involved in all of these different rocks.
After thinking it over, why would I skip out and not fill in this little piece here? I may as well fill it in with more rock molds.
I start by filling in the majority of the area desired. I later fill in all the joints by hand applying all the plaster and then carving it afterwards, which leaves these great results you'll see all over my layout.
Wow, it's been quite some time since I had the trestle bridge out. I made its own little homemade paint booth over here. Time to fill in the rock work of where it used to sit.
Here again, you can see I start by filling in the majority. Unfortunately, I ran out of rock molds, and this is as far as I could get. I'm only going to be doing a light amount of carving behind the trestle bridge, as you won't see most of this when the trestle bridge is up front. Since I have to add rock molds to the side of this lift out section, I decided to show it to you. I made it entirely out of scrap wood, but it's not supposed to be seen.
I now have most of the rock molds in place on the lift out section. The whole purpose of this is to give me easy access to the solder points and the truss bridge that'll be directly behind this bridge. Although it looks small in video, it's rather hard to get your hand over there for a 6'2" man.
With the amount of time, effort, and money it took to place all these rocks, it's essential I go over top of them with a bright light to ensure there's no places that look like they have blobs of plaster. Everywhere needs to be carved, so when the paint goes on, it looks real pretty. Before painting all the rocks, I paint anywhere that will be like a grasslands a base coat of brown. Finally, time to paint these rocks after staring at them blank white for over a year. I'm using the wash technique. If you're interested in knowing how to do this, look up Woodland Scenics tutorial. It's quite informative. I'm using 4 or 5 different colors. I can't remember in this section. By looking up photos of the Canadian Rockies, that helped me pick my color selection for my rocks. You can tell I'll need to do some touch-ups here and there, but I'm okay with what turned out for now. I still have to go over the top of all the rocks with different vegetations and branches that might be on top of them.
A bit of work has now been done since the last time I added to this video. One thing I've done is moved my bus bars from under the layout to a more accessible area on the side of the layout. I seen this in someone else's video and thought, wow, what an idiot mistake I made putting these under the layout. They were very hard to reach. All of the tools that are inside of the layout room, which is adjacent to the trestle bridge, have also been reorganized. I've added a Lionel covered bridge.
I also started 3D printing some of the building fronts needed for this scene on the far side of the layout.
You can see now that the trestle bridge is installed. The 2 black Atlas bridges are installed. I've got 2 CN steamers just sitting there. And the lift out section is pulled out so I can get to wires and the bridges while I'm working on the layout. I've still yet to paint the lift out section. I've still yet to paint down here and carve down here where it ties into the trestle bridge. Same on the far side. That's coming up.
Getting back to these Coke signs, I just notched a slot in each 2x4 so that the sign will sit on a channel when inside of the framing. The lights are now in place to be added on a switch. I only have them plugged into the wall here.
All the plywood is now in place. above the switching yard area. Now that we got all this painted, and I want to add, it's painted so that once the track and all the ground covers are laid down, if we do miss a small area, at least there's paint below it to help hide it. Now I know you're supposed to go with a brown, but I already had this light green available, and rather than spend 40 bucks, I'm going to use what's available. So I'm going to have 3 track lines go this way, and I'm thinking of a grain elevator. And then over here, I'm going to have an intermodal freight yard. Also want to add how this little dip down here is going to be for the wharf scene, as I have one of those Lionel tugboats. Now that the Coke signs are turned off, I wanted to show you that this is a swing door. I got about 2 feet of clearance to crawl between right here. And you can store stuff under there or just access some wires that need fiddling with.
Now it's time to clean up this side of the layout. There's open plywood so I can easily access wires and overspray from many different projects being done on this side over the years. I started small and cleaned a small corner and painted it to move everything else from the other side of the layout onto it. You'll probably notice even the passenger yard is moved, but it was not yet wired, so I moved it to have a nice paint job on all that area. We also got the opening that used to be for ease of access to the rails filled in. The layout is reinforced so I can walk on it in that section. I still yet haven't decided how I'm going to work my access hatches into the back. Now that the railroad was back to running with the trestle bridge and black bridge in place, where I'm pointing I started noticing my inner models were catching the rock work that sits below the double black bridge. With some quick trimming, they went by easily.
I also had noticed that this tunnel portal was a little too low and the inner models were catching on it. So I popped it off, and I hand make these, so I'm just going to add an extension onto it. Started boxing in underneath the layout, underneath the roundhouse area. This is going to work as a box storage in order to store the boxes of any trains that are out on the layout. Eventually I'll have a storage shelf on this side and this side as well. Until I get that built and all the scenery above finished, I'm just gonna use it as a storage space for now. Here's my yard area. I've reinstalled it now. Mostly, there's a couple small adjustments I have to make over here. I'm trying to get it as close to the 054 loop on the outside as possible, so I got more room for some pretty cool 3D printed structures, as I've already showed you guys. Over here, I'm gonna have my 2-lead into my Atlas churn table. If I ever get a Millhouse River Studio churn table, I got the switch, the 072 churn switch, to put my Millhouse River Studios churn table right here and have it detachable so I can bring it on the mobile layout I also plan on building. Finally got the shelves finished. As you can see, they're deep enough to support a box. There's nothing backing them. I'm going to use these Christmas lights I got to illuminate them and make them look a little bit more pretty, as some might call it. But I'm going to give everything a coat of white, and then I'm going to go black, just like the Coca-Cola sign area. Got the first coat of white primer on. Now here is the completed shelves. Looks great. I can take the boxes of trains that are on the layout, put them below, and it helps me keep those boxes separated and organized from the ones with trains still inside them. It's time in our video to install something I've never had yet for the layout: the command systems to run the trains flawlessly. Installing the WTIU is rather simple. It's just a couple wires. Next up, the base tree. Officially got the base tree installed and running engines. My problem is now I have absolutely no power to the inside track. Finally got the inside loop to work. I couldn't figure out why I had no power going to it, but after a quick little bit of research online, turns out there's a $35 paywall in order to access all 4 outputs on the WTIU. It also unlocks a ton of cool features that all these engines have I never knew about. We'll end this video off where we started. Thanks for watching, Until next update.